Thank you, Samkelisiwe, and thank you, Dr. Muzi. Dr. Muzi said we will be here for a couple of hours. Please don't be scared. It's 1 hour, 30 minutes. So I think he meant for a couple of minutes. Anyway, let's dive into the purpose of today. What did I want to start with? Okay, let me just open Atlas.ti. Okay, so last time we were together, we talked about quite a lot of issues, and it's you can see today's workshop as a kind of a continuation from where we left off in the previous workshop. But if you were not part of the previous workshop, don't stress about that. I think you can still access the recording. You just have to find a way. I don't know how you access it. Maybe you should know it better than me, but you can always ask Samkelisiwe to give you the recording. But by way of summary, last time we touched on manual versus software analysis, manual versus software qualitative data analysis, and I explained the weaknesses of the what we call manual analysis, where you don't use any software. You just say, well, I did this, I did that. You explain, and I showed you some examples from previous thesis and dissertations where you find that people don't even go into the detail of explaining their data analysis process, which I find to be quite problematic, because we want to see the steps that you followed to conduct your analysis. So that's why I'm saying this is problematic. And then we also talked about how to create a new project in Atlas.ti from scratch, and how to import an existing project. If you already have a project that you were working on, it was saved somewhere, and how do you import it and continue working on it? And then we also talked about different ways of uploading documents in Atlas.ti. And then we also touched on coding, how to code and how to auto code, because there's this what we call auto coding that you can do in Atlas.ti. So we talked about all of those things. So I just want to project something here about, oh, you know what, let me just project this one that you received. So the advert that you received, it says, the workshop will focus on conducting data analysis using some of the advanced analysis features and functions in Atlas.ti. This includes working with networks. So today you will gain a little bit of an understanding. What are we talking about when we talk about networks, ad hoc networks, and what is code co-occurrence, what is code co-occurrence explorer, and what is code groundedness. You know, when we talk about how grounded is a code in the data, what is a redundant code? You know, we're going to talk a little bit about redundancy coding, redundancy coding analyzer, and density. So what is the density of a code? And then the workshop also says we will also explore the use of query tools when working with large data sets, such as when you are analyzing many interviews. So those are the four things, and that four items that we want to focus on. And I summarized them, I think, somewhere here, so that I make sure that we cover all of them. Okay. With that being said, I'm going to turn off my camera. I'm going to turn off my camera and then we can start. So I'm going to talk for about 50 minutes to an hour, and then I'll leave maybe 30 to 25 minutes for questions and answers. All right, thank you very much. I'm switching off my, and thank you for joining today's workshop. And thanks to you, Samkelisiwe and Dr. Muzi, for organizing this workshop and for me to be here. Okay, now let's go to Atlas.ti. So this is Atlas.ti. Now I've got 3 projects running in my Atlas.ti. So I've got a project on gender-based violence, survey open questions. I've got another one, RF1, which is a code for something else. And then I've got another project, perspectives in ECD practitioners. So I just want to open this one. Maybe we'll also, when I explain, I will also touch on this project. I've already told in the previous workshop, I already touched on how to create projects from scratch in Atlas.ti. So we're not going to focus on that. So let me open this existing project. So I just double click on it, then it opens. Perspectives of ECD practitioners in Free State. I don't like this. How do I remove this? Okay, good. So perspectives of ECD practitioners in Free State Province of South Africa. So that's a project that I used in my previous workshop. Now let's focus on what we said we want to do. So I want to open it in front of me so that I go through it step by step. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about is networks, right? We want to understand, first of all, what is a network and why do you need networks in your data analysis? And how do you incorporate networks into your thesis or dissertation? Now, let me show you, first of all, what is a network. Now, this is the same PhD thesis I used last time. So this is my PhD thesis, and you will see here it says Mzoli Steve Mnganga, which is me. So let's, okay, I can just type here network, so that it takes us to networks. Good. Now, when we talk about a network, we talk about something like this. This is a network. And when you present a network like this, it's a little bit complex. So you want to explain it. Why do you use this network and what is it about? So there was something that I was explaining, but I won't go into the detail about it. But I want to draw your attention to this sentence. So I say here, as an illustration, figure 5.2 below depicts an ad hoc network. With the in vivo node, we send a letter indicating what teachers in the 3 schools said about communicating with parents through letters. So you are interviewing people and you ask the teachers, hey, so how do you communicate with the parents of the children that you are teaching in your school? And then in the schools, in all the schools that this study was undertaken, in which the study was undertaken, the teachers said, we use a letter. So this mode of communication with letters was so important in the study, so much that, I had to make an illustration using this, we send a letter, which is an in vivo node. Now, don't get confused when when you hear these terms. Like I said last time, there is a Atlas.ti language that you must start to learn, as you are starting to navigate your way in Atlas.ti. So there's a specific language that you must use when you said, the moment you said I used Atlas.ti. So there's this Atlas.ti language. So now an in vivo node is this. So this is a node, if you understand the meaning of the word, a node, something that is central, and then there are strands that are going out. So this is the node. So don't think that when someone says an in vivo node is making a mistake. The person is not trying to say in vivo code. So there is an in vivo code and there's an in vivo node. So you have to understand that. So I won't explain an in vivo code, no code or node. So just take a note of it and then you can Google it. What is an in vivo code and what is an in vivo node? But this is a node. This is nodal to this particular network. So this is a network. it's for showing, like here, what was said exactly by the teachers in respect of this node. We send a letter. Sometimes a teacher will come to me as the HOD and say, ma'am, blah, 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 blah. So it shows that that was school 2 focus group interview, blah, 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 blah. Then a letter is sent out to the parents through the learner. So they give the child a letter to take home and all of that. So that's an ad hoc network. So we call it an ad hoc network. You see, that's Atlas.ti language again. Let's look for another network. Okay, let's just keep going. Network. Okay, maybe we can. Okay, so this is another ad hoc network. In this case, it was used. Let me make it smaller, maybe, so that you can see it much better. It's quite a complex diagram. Yeah. Okay, I can stop there, perhaps. So it's an ad hoc network for identifying relations to transpose groups to categories. So as you are analyzing, you are starting from a code. So you've got a code, and then the code, a group of codes, you will form code groups like we did in the previous workshop, code groups. And then we said the code groups, you treat them as emerging categories. And then from categories, then you start to extrapolate your themes. Code groups, categories, and themes. That's the process. Now, in this ad hoc network, I'm trying to explain this transposition of groups to categories, moving from groups to categories. And then maybe later I will talk about moving from categories to themes. So what is important is you have to explain that, because the professor who's analyzing this thing won't understand what is happening. First of all, probably doesn't know Atlas.ti. And besides that, this is a diagram that speaks to you, it speaks to you as the person who was conducting the analysis. So even if I understand Atlas.ti, I won't understand what you are trying to say here. So you always have to unpack it to say, okay, this is what is happening in this diagram. You see? So to unpack it, you might need just a paragraph or two. But to explain all of this thing in words, in paragraphs, you need pages, you need 5 pages. So that's why you need this network. And as you can see, this network is full of details. Is a cause of, if you see here, is associated with, those things are important. Okay. So that's more or less the purpose of networks. I think somewhere also there is a network, but let me leave that one. Okay, let's come here. Let's come back to Atlas.ti. Now, how do we start to work with networks in Atlas.ti? Now, you will see in this, okay, let me just show it here in this project overview. You will see that in this project, there are 10 documents, there are 10 codes, there are 486 quotations. For now, there are no memos, no networks. Now, when we talk about quotations, as you see, there's a quotation mark, right? But quotation doesn't mean like as in something that you are quoting, like using quotation marks. A quotation in Atlas.ti language is a piece of text that you have highlighted and because it carries a unit of meaning. It is a segment of text that you code because it carries a unit of meaning. So we call it a quotation. We don't mean it's something that is in quotation marks. Okay, so we dealt with quotations in the previous workshop. So you can just write quotations if you still don't understand anything about quotations and codes and all of that. Okay. So we've got 10 documents and 10 codes. So let's open our 10 codes. You will see these are the 10 codes. Let me open them in a code manager. So this is a code manager. So code manager, you just click home and then you click here and then it opens a code manager. So this is my code manager. Codes. Okay, something important I need to do. Let me just remove the colors, remove color. Okay, let me just do this, select maybe a few and then remove color from all of them. Okay, yes, because this is important. It's something I need to explain about the colors. That's why I thought I should remove them first. So what I want to talk about is the networks, right? How do you create them and how do you start to understand them? The first thing is you've got the codes that you've already developed from the 10 documents, from your 10 interviews, if it's interviews. As you can see here, participants 6, 7, 8, up to 10. I think there are 10. Yeah, up to 10. So from these 10 interviews, you have developed 10 codes. Okay, now here are the 10 codes and we opened them in the code manager. So let me close it again and then open it again. So it's home in the home tab and then codes and then you click code. So that's your code manager. Now you want to understand your codes by just looking at them without, reading wara. Okay, so here, let's look at codes that talk about maybe a negative experience of these teachers. So challenges, it's not a positive thing. It's a challenge is your problem. So all the problematic areas, we're gonna give them a red color. Challenge, effects of poverty is also negative. We'll give it a red color. It's gonna be important for the network. So I'll show you why this is important. What else is negative here? Training, teaching, parental involvement, love, COVID-19. So they talked about the impact of COVID. So it's something negative, it's not. So I also give it a red. Now, all the positive things like further involvement, I'm going to give them a blue color. Feeling safe is also important and positive. Health and nutrition, I give it blue. Love for children. So these are all codes. Parental involvement, I give it. Okay, for whatever reason. So let's say this one, it deals directly with teachers, teaching and learning resources, blah, blah, blah. So let's give it a different color. Maybe we give it yellow. Let's give it yellow. Okay, now. So we've got all these colors. So as a researcher and an analyst, you know what these colors mean. So you will write in your notes that codes that speak to this particular issue, I give them a red color. Codes that speak to this particular issue, I give them a blue color. So by just looking at the colors, you already know what's happening. Okay, fine, let's move. So let's select the first. Oh no, let's select this one that talks about the effects of poverty, this code. So what did these teachers say about the effects of poverty? But more importantly, how do we show that in a network? So you select it and then you click show in a network. Or you can right click and select show in a network. Okay. So let's choose the easy method, which is to click there. And then that is our emerging network. But there is nothing there, right? You see that okay, let me make it 100. There is nothing. So to turn this into a network, you need to add neighbors. So what are neighbors? It can be a code, it can be a memo, it can be a quotation. So so this is already a code. So we can't say we are adding codes. So we can only add quotations. So this is all the quotations that speak to this code. So in other words, the quotation is exactly what the participants said about this code. Now let's reduce them to just make them few. Let's select a few and then I'm just going to remove them, remove nodes from network. So I remove them. And then this is just a summary. So let's make it big. You select preview so that you can read it properly. Even here, let's select preview. Even there, let's select preview. I can just remove maybe this one. so that we don't have too many. Preview maybe, and another preview. Okay, now this is the code and these are the quotations. So this is the neighbors that we were selecting as the quotations. But obviously, you know, you can't read this. Of course, you can do that and that and that and that and that and maybe this, but you can also automate it so that it looks much better. So you click on routing and you can just maybe select this orthogonal routing so that it appears like that. You see? And then maybe try to bring it a little bit closer, and then you select orthogonal routing again, and then maybe you put it here, and then whatever. So it's something you can just play around. You can just play around this and see what you get out of it, you see. You can just keep changing the shapes and just play around with it and see what it gives you until it shows the kind of shape that you really like. You can also use this. So you can use this or that, circular. Or you can, I also like this one, hierarchical, and then you should select left to right. But it doesn't show nice here. Maybe we can select top to down, top to down. Maybe that's better. I don't know. Depending on what you want to depict, right? And then, so what do you do with this? Once you have it and you are happy with it, let's see something, maybe, yeah, something like that. I don't know. I don't know what you really like. Maybe this. Let's bring it a little bit closer. What did I choose last time? Okay, it's fine. And then once you have this and you are happy to use this as your network, you know, to explain something and to also show to the reader that this is really emerged from the data. You show that participant 1 said this, participant 3, participant 7, participant 1, participant 8. Maybe we can remove it since we already have participant 1, so you might want to just remove that. And if you see something between what participant 1, maybe participant 7 said, you want to draw some kind of a connection, so you can click on it. And then in this little box, you just drag it, and then you put it there. And then, so what are you trying to say about the link between participant 1 and participant 7? So you need to select it here. So is participant 1 justifying what participant 7, or is explaining, or is expanding, or is criticizing, or is supporting, is contradicting? Or you can even create a new relation type to say, maybe it's not captured here. So you want to create your own relation. So you're just going to click new relation, and then you give it a name, and then you click create. But let's use the existing ones, okay? Well, let's say, for argument's sake, it's participant 8. So there's a connection between participant 8 and 1. So let's say participant 1 explains what participant 8 said. So you click explain, and then you will see that little explain appearing there. And then maybe participant 3 is expanding on what participant 8 has already said. So you just do that, and then you click expand. Where's expand? So it says expand, you see? And then maybe you might want to, again, play around with your shape. If you like that, then that's what you're going to end up with. So once you have this, so what do you do with it? Then you export it. So you choose this option, export as a bitmap. And then you will save it. I don't know where to save it. Okay, let's just do this research, Atlas.ti. So it will have effects of poverty because that's your node, effects of poverty as the name, but you can always edit how you want to name this. Okay, close, save. Now it's saved. Now let's say you want to incorporate that into your thesis. So here it is, effects of poverty. You just double click on it, and then you can copy it and paste it in your thesis. So I'm not going to go through that, but at least now you can see this network develops. Of course, you have to drag it a little bit down so that it shows that explains, that little explain there. So you can fix that in Atlas.ti. So you'll just copy and paste it in your thesis, and then you give it a caption. Okay. So that's a network, right? Now I can close this. Let me save it. Maybe I will want to refer to it later. So all networks must always be saved once you are done. Okay. Save network, create. Okay, that's fine. So that's basically how a network operates. Now let's assume that all these codes with a red dot, they belonged to the same group called problems. So you select that, you press Control on your keyboard, Control, and you select it, Control again, and you select it, and then you drag all three to the right. You see here it says no code groups. So to create code groups, you can just, yeah. Okay, let me start that one again. So you just select them and then you drag to the right, you drop them, and then we're going to call this new code group problems experienced by teachers. Problems or challenges or whatever. So you create that code group. So you've got a code group now. So I still just want to demonstrate a little bit about the networks, how they work with code groups. Now, if you click on this code group, it will already show those three codes that belong to the code group. So if you click outside of it, then it shows all your codes. Now, let's just click once on this code group. Let's see. Yes, code group, and then right click, then show in network. Now you can already see here is the code group, problems experienced by teachers. And here are the three codes belonging to the code group. And of course, you can now maybe start, to show them in whatever way you want them to show and so forth. And then you can also start to, again, add neighbors. Let's say you can add now neighbors directly to the code groups, not to the code. Let's see what we can add. Let's say we want to see this code group, how is it embedded throughout the data set, which is the 10 interviews. So where did it come from? So we right click and then we add neighbors and then we select documents. Oh, okay, it won't allow that. Okay, let's do it through the codes. Let's do it. It will always show through the codes. Okay. Okay, so we can see that these codes come from participant 8 to 10 and so forth, and you can all see with this one, with the other one, and as well you can do that. And if for whatever reason you need to show this, it's something you can play around it, maybe bring it a little bit closer so that if you want to use it somewhere you want to add it to your thesis, you can always do that. So I was just trying to show you that you can create networks from codes, but you can also create networks from code groups. So I'm not going to save this one. Don't save. So I'll just say no. Okay. Let me close. Or maybe let me not close it. Okay, so that is about it, about the networks. So you know how to create a network, you know how to play around it. Now let me move on to something else. Networks, code co-occurrence explorers. Okay, let's look at code co-occurrence explorers. Now, maybe I should start off by talking a little bit about code co-occurrence explorer. What is it? So they are when you code, let's say we are coding this document. Let's just select a random document like this one. So the interviewer, what is he asking? Let's see, recorded. interview, blah, 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 blah. Okay, let's say the interviewer is asking about quality of the ECD practitioners, of the teachers. Practitioner is a teacher in this case. Let's say he's asking about quality. And then we code this, let's say the whole paragraph. And then we apply code. And then the code we apply is, we say quality of training needs attention. Okay, fine. So we add that code, right? And then as we read it, and then we code another piece of it. Now you remember, okay, it's fine. And then we code this again. We just code it with need to upgrade qualifications. Add. Now, if I click on this code, you see this is the quotation that is coded with this first code. But if I click here, it's a portion of it. It's not the whole paragraph. In other words, this code, this is inside of this. We call it an embedded code in Atlas.ti language. So it's an embedded code. It is embedded within this one. And this one is an overlapping code because it's overlapping this one. It goes over this one. It's an overlapping code. So you need now the code co-occurrence. So these two codes, they co-occur. They occur together in the same text segment. And it's not always a good thing. So when you are coding like your PhD thesis, this is going to happen in Atlas.ti. So it's not a good thing. So that's why you need a code, this code co-occurrence analyzer. So let's go to it. So you are on the home tab, then you click analyze. Okay, I had to get some water. So you click analyze, and then you say code co-occurrence table. Click on it. Now, these are all your codes. So you want to see which codes occur together in all the documents that you have coded. So you select all of them. If you are interested in all of them, which is often the case, you want to just analyze all of them once. So let's select all of them. Unfortunately, it looks like here you can't select all of them at once. So you have to check all the boxes, and then you come here again, you select all of them. Because you are comparing these codes, these are the same codes, but you want to see where do they overlap or co-occur, as we say. So I select all of them. Unfortunately, there's no option. Atlas.ti didn't add an option to select all of them for some reason that I don't understand. Okay, we've selected all of them. So for now, let's close this. And then we push this to the side. And then we do that. And then maybe we close this diagram so that we can see. Okay, now these are all your codes going to the right, and then these are all your codes going down. So you want to know, for instance, this code, effects of poverty, does it co-occur with any of these codes? Further involvement, feeling safe, blah, 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 blah. So you can see here, effects of poverty co-occurs only once with challenges experienced by teachers. So they occur together only once. And this one, health and nutrition, only co-occurs 2 times with this one, challenges. However, when you look at this one, challenges experienced by ECD teachers, it co-occurs 29 times with this one. This parental involvement, it co-occurs 29 times with challenges experienced by teachers. So I'm sure you know how, you can see how this graph works. This one goes there and so forth. This one goes there. So you are concerned, let's say, why does this co-occur so many times? It could be because that the teachers, when they talked about parental involvement, they experienced so many challenges with parents when it comes to involving parents. So there were so many challenges. So whenever you ask them about parental involvement, they talked about challenges. So you coded that particular piece of segment with the code parental involvement, but then again, you had to code it with challenges experienced by teachers. Because whenever they talk about parental involvement, they include challenges. Now, you can click on this. You can just click on it. So it will immediately show you where is the co-occurrence. So participant 6 said, our challenge now is that even the parents at that site, you find that a child is old enough. Okay, so this is not a full quotation, but it's fine. So they experience challenges with parents who don't bring their children to preschool, even though those children are old enough to have already started at preschool or the creche, but the parents don't bring them. So that's why this text segment is coded with parental involvement, and is also coded with challenges experienced by ECD teachers, right? And then here is another instance of co-occurrence, challenges experienced. We start them. Our challenge now is that even the parents, oh, it's the same thing. Why is it the same thing? Okay, here is another unique challenge. There are challenges we are experiencing from parents because in most cases, the parents will say, I'm not educated, I cannot encourage my child to be educated, something like that. So that's why they co-occur this code, parental involvement, and this one, challenges experienced by teachers. So once you start to understand why 2 codes or 3 codes are co-occurring, then you can decide what to do about it. Maybe you can merge the 2 codes into 1 code. I think we touched on that in the previous one, but it's an easy thing to do. You can merge them, turn them into 1 code. So all those documents that were coded with the 2 codes, then it will change now. It will be 1 code in all those text segments. So it's not going to change anything. It's just going to change from 2 codes to 1 code. Okay, so that is code co-occurrence analysis. And what is also interesting here is that these colors also mean something. You see, it's a very dark color, so it already shows you by just looking at the table without looking at the number, you already know that this should grab your attention. You see, this one is very, very light where there's 1, but this one with 4 and 3 is a little bit darker. So that also shows that this is a cell of interest. So you might want to explore, why did love for children co-occur 4 times with parental involvement? So that's something you want to do when you conduct your own analysis. So that's a code co-occurrence table. And another easy way to do that is to also show it through a Sankey diagram. So this is a Sankey diagram. Why is it not showing? Okay, let's do this. Okay. Now this is let me hide the table. Yes. We call this a Sankey diagram. It's really nice to include this sometimes in your explanation, in your thesis, when you explain your data analysis, to show the depth of your analysis, that you think that these 2 codes are the most prominent in your analysis. Not necessarily codes, but themes. Let's say you have a theme that focuses on challenges experienced by parents. So to justify why this is really a theme, you can show a diagram like this Sankey diagram. Now, this Sankey diagram, you see it's very thick. This strand is a very thick strand, and it goes to this one, parental involvement. So there's a connection between this and this. It means most of the challenges that were experienced by teachers, they were about the issue of parental involvement. Now you see, there's a small strand going there, going to training qualifications. So there were challenges about teachers, you know, who were not properly trained to teach young children. They didn't have the correct qualifications. So that was a challenge. And there was a challenge of teachers not showing love for the children. You see, they went into the job because it was the available job, but they don't have love for children. So that was, okay, anyway, no, it's not connected to that. It's connected to this, as you can see, it goes there, so it's connected to that. But what I want to draw your attention to is these challenges. So look at this trend here. It goes all the way to teaching and learning resources. So they didn't have adequate teaching and learning resources. So it's one of the challenges. So that's how a Sankey diagram works, right? Unfortunately, Atlas.ti version 22, which is what I'm using, doesn't have a proper way of exporting a Sankey diagram. They don't have a proper way to export this, so you have to snip it. I hope you know a snipping tool. So something like this. So you just snip it, new, and then you snip it like this, like a screenshot. So you take a screenshot like that if you have to use it. I don't know why. I still have to download Atlas.ti version 23. I hope they solved this problem. But in version 22, you can't export this like we did with the networks. Okay, so there are certain ways you can play around this, you know, rotate it, but it doesn't show nice. And then let's refresh layout. Auto fit window, refresh layout, not rotate, and then auto fit window. So there's a lot you can do. You can drag it. Well, I don't know why you'd want to drag it for whatever reason. And then fit window again, or try to bring it closer. I don't know if that really helps, but yeah. So just try to play around with this. You can also show the codes. Auto layout, respect, no replacement, display. Yeah, you can display icons like that to show that these are codes, you know, so you display these little icons, you can remove them on, yeah. So that is a Sankey diagram. And the Sankey diagram comes from this table, the code co-occurrence table. So we can close the diagram. So this is the code co-occurrence table. And it goes with the Sankey diagram. So you can choose to see the Sankey diagram by just clicking on Sankey diagram, or you can just remove it. Let me see when you show this, and then you remove the table. Okay, no, this doesn't show much, so let's leave that. Let's leave that, the bar chart. So I think the most useful one here is the Sankey diagram. Yeah, so I like the Sankey diagram. It would be nice if you try to use it in your thesis to explain this particular concept. Okay, there's quite a lot when it comes to this code co-occurrence table, but I don't want to go into too much detail about that, because if you want, you can do you can show the coefficients. And as you can see, if you know anything about correlation, you know correlation is between 0 to 1. The closer it is to 1, it means there's a strong correlation. There's a strong correlation here between parental involvement and challenges. So that's why you see a 0.09. But it's not something we really do with qualitative research. But as Prof. Ngulube explained, that in Atlas.ti you can do some kind of a mixed methods analysis, and that's where this would come in. You see this show of coefficients. So let's remove that. Okay, now I'm going to close this code co-occurrence table so that I move probably to the last item for today. Let me just get some water. Okay. Now, let's talk a little bit about code groundedness and code density. As we said we will do, we try to cover everything we said we're going to work with. Code groundedness, redundancy, and density. Okay. Now you've got, okay, let me close this participant 6. Okay, let me just close it. Where are we? Okay, let's just open the Project Explorer again. Fine. Let me close also the code manager because I want to show you again. So when you go to the code manager, make sure you are on the home tab and then you click there and then you click codes. Okay, so these are your codes. So we want to talk about groundedness. You see here it says groundedness. Now, what is groundedness? Groundedness shows how many text segments were coded with a particular code. Like, for instance, parental involvement, there are 257. There were 257 quotations that were associated with this code, which means this code was used 257 times, followed by this 198 times throughout these 10 documents. So it was used 257, 98 times, followed maybe by 31, by 73, and so forth. So that's groundedness. How grounded, how well grounded is this code in your data? Now you see there's a code that was only used once. Why was this code only used once and also this one? So because these two codes were only used once, you have to see what should you do with these codes. These are probably codes that were not very useful because they were only mentioned once. But this code could also mean these codes are very useful because maybe there was someone who was affected by a particular issue, which was not a problem for others. Maybe you want to point that out. But if you have codes like this one, you may have to analyze their importance. Why is this important? Should I keep it? Should I delete it? This code. So when you delete it, you just click, right click and then delete. Or should I merge it with this one? Or should I merge this code with this one? So when you merge, you select both codes and then you right click and then you click merge into one code. So you have to decide what to do when you see a code like this, you know, with only one measure of groundedness. So this is groundedness. Now let's talk a little bit about density, a code density. So you see now density here is still 0 because the analysis is ongoing. So what is a density? A density is another measure of how important or how connected a particular code is. Now, let's say this effects of poverty is a challenge and is linked to challenges, and you want to make to show that link between these two because they are both speaking to challenges. So you select that and then you drag it and you put it there. And then you need to state why, you know, you are linking these two codes. It's because they are related. So we can do a new relation type. So we say related, right? Related. You merge them. I mean, you connect them because they are related. So you create. So now you've got 1 density, right? 1 density. And if you think that health and nutrition are linked to poverty, because if you don't have good health and good nutrition, it might be an indicator that you have a poverty challenge. So you can also drag this and put it there. Is a property of, you can select that. So there are 2 now, level of groundedness of this particular code. So, I mean, density, its density is now at 2. And then you also feel that health and nutrition is a challenge. So you can drag it and put it there. And then you can just, it's associated with the challenges. So you've got 2 there and 2 there, and so on and so on, right? So that's how you achieve your density. And this density level is going to show now in everything that you do. For instance, if you want to select this code and you want to show it in a network like that, it starts to now show what we have just done. Let's just do this. Yeah, it starts to show what the connections, the density. So this is the density that we were talking about, that it is this challenge is associated. So health and nutrition is associated with challenges experienced by these teachers. And the issue of health and nutrition is a property of poverty. Otherwise, if you are rich, you shouldn't necessarily have so many issues with health and nutrition. And poverty is related to challenges that these teachers are experiencing. Can you see now how these things are, they become linked? And then if you want to show this as some kind of a diagram in your thesis, you can show it just as it is. And you can maybe, if you think this is important, you can just now again add the neighbors. Maybe you want a few quotations associated with this. You see there are so many. So there isn't much we can do because there are, so maybe we can just select many of them and delete them and see what we can do about that. Okay, let's just do that. And then we delete them. And then select again so that we have few. And then we delete again. Okay, and then we zoom in again. And then we sort it out nicely like that. But it's still too far, so we can try to bring it closer. And then we do that. Can you see? So you are just trying to show the examples where what the participant actually said about health and nutrition, and then you just have your little preview there and your little preview there, and then you correct it again. Can you see? I don't know what would work. Maybe something like that. And then you will obviously export it as I explained earlier. So this is a nice little diagram. And again, you can do like we said, if you see a connection between this and that, you draw that. Yeah, you extrapolate all the connections that you see. Maybe it explains that, and maybe this explains that. Maybe you think this explains that, and then you can do that, and then you correct your diagram. And then I don't know how you're going to use it, but I'm just making random examples that you can use in your thesis. So I'm not even going to save it. Oh, let me just save it though. Yes, let me save it. Create. Okay, that's fine. So that's, let me see what I was demonstrating there. So I was demonstrating groundedness and density. So that's how density works. To show that these are connected, you were able to extrapolate the connections. So you can work around it. And yes. What else do I want to show you when it comes to density? Okay, let's leave it at that, so that I move to the other one. Okay, redundancy is something I've already explained. It's whereby there are codes that overlap on a segment of text. You see, so you might find that the other code is redundant if they are overlapping on top of each other, as I showed you with document 6 here. Like here, you see this one is inside. It might happen that this one is redundant. You probably don't need it. Or a classic case of redundancy is whereby this whole paragraph, you have the code. You have this code, which is, what's the code? Which is quality of training, wara wara. And then still here, you use the same code. Then that's a classic case of redundancy. That's that's what we call a redundancy in Atlas.ti, a redundant code. So if you want to read a little bit more about redundancy, so you just have to click here, help, and then you come here, then you search, and then you type redundant, and then you press enter, finding redundant coding. So finding redundant codings. So you can read on it here, because you need to remove redundant codes from your analysis. So please read here. So it says redundant codes are overlapping or embedded quotations, blah, 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 blah. So you will understand it when you read it on your own. Now, let me come to the last one. The workshop will also explore the use of query tools when working with large data sets. Okay. So here we have 10 interviews that were conducted. It's quite a lot, but remember, there are people who analyze many interviews. I mean, I'm aware of one study that involved 100 CEOs who were interviewed, and I was asked, to provide some expert support in that analysis. Maybe I should. Let me see. Okay, let's just do this. Let me close this. Do you want to prospective save? Yes. I just want to open. I'm just going to take maybe 5 minutes, then I'll close. Now, this is the study. Let me open it. So where I was requested, why does it have only 2 documents? Okay, no. So I don't have it here. Let's go back to that one. Let's go back to this one. Okay. So when you work with many documents, so you don't know where is what. Like if you look at these codes, let's say these challenges, you don't know where they are, right? Because there were so many interviews that you interviewed, maybe that you conducted, maybe 20. So you really want to see, where did I find these challenges? And maybe together with poverty, which documents or which interview transcripts talk about these 2 challenges? Maybe, let's say maybe poverty and nutrition. Yes, let's focus on that. So we click on Analyze, and then we select the query tool. So you are asking Atlas.ti to use its intelligence to tell you, where did the participants talk about poverty and health and nutrition? So you will select this operator called AND. So you've got these operators, or AND, one off and not. So you will choose whatever. If you want this or that, you choose this one. And if you want this and that, in this case, we want this and this. So let's try that. So you select it and it shows there as a diagram. And then you double click on this. Or maybe you don't double click. It might show you something else. So you just drag it. You put it on this red dot. And then, so this, you want this, or you want this and this. Does it occur in this data set? Yes, it does. That's why it's already showing here. So let's just drag it a little bit to the side. But it only happened once with participant 1, where there was effects of poverty and health and nutrition. Now let's read what it says. Yes, but you know that the good health and nutrition or nutritional support is not something you can provide alone. You understand? It's not something that Lisedi can provide. So that's the organization, that was doing the work. It's not something that Lisedi can provide alone. Now, how do you think that you can support to make sure that blah, blah, blah? So this is not in context, but don't worry about it. So you won't really know what they were talking about. Unless, of course, you want to open the whole interview, which you just click this little arrow here, then it shows the entire interview, but that's not what we want to do. But we just want to see how we use the query tool to ask Atlas.ti to show us something that we want to see now. Let's make another example. Let's remove that. So we just click delete. We select it and click delete. It's not going to delete because it's just going to delete it from here. Let's say we want to see, remember we said parental involvement and challenges were co-occurring. Those were the codes that tended to co-occur. So we drag challenges, we put it in the first red dot, and then we take parental involvement, and then we also put it there. Now you will see here, there were so many instances where parental involvement was associated with challenges. So there are so many text segments. So you will see it happened in participant 6 again, participant 6 again, participant 6 again. It also happened in participant 7, participant 8, participant 8, participant 9, participant 9, and so on. You see that it kept happening all the time. Participant 10, almost all the participants, when they talked about parental involvement, this was also coded with challenges because this was a big challenge. So this is how you use the query tool. So now, when you have Atlas.ti in your computer, please explore, the other query tools, right? Like you can explore co-occurs, so if these two co-occur, so you will play around with that, or you will play with the or operator, within operator, encloses operator. So the nice thing is when you put your cursor there, it shows you, it explains to you what this does, you see. Okay, so let me see what happens here. Code or okay, let's leave that. Okay, so those are the functions, a little bit of advanced functions that I wanted to show you in today's workshop. And then the next workshop that we will have in August, it will focus on working with visualizations. How do you start? I know I touched a little bit on that, but there's more to do with it. We didn't use all the export tools, where you take things and you show them in your thesis. So I think in the next workshop we'll touch on that. But the nice thing is that today we covered everything we wanted to do. As we said, we will touch on some of the advanced features, including networks, code co-occurrence explorers, we did it, code groundedness, we did it, redundancy, we did it, density, we did it, and using the query tool, we have just done it. So I think we covered the purposes and the objectives of today's session. And I'm going to now hand over to Samkeli Siwe, so that if there are questions, I can deal with the questions because we are scheduled up until 10:30. Thank you very much.